Welcome to LNN Insider. I'm your host, Samuel Pugh. Today, Craig Richards had a chance to sit down with a special individual that is spearheading some positive change in the community. We'll be back with our guest right after this.
Whether it's raining diamonds or sapphire skies, add a little sparkle to your day with Petersburg Jewelers.
Swader, Central Virginia's premier sports park. Corporate events, parties, date night, or just a family outing. At Swader's, it's always playtime.
When it was Seth's turn to pay for gas on the annual boys' trip, he had to act fast to avoid a very awkward car ride. Luckily, Seth was able to transfer the cash with his phone. In that very moment, we were the Bank of Seth. BSB, the Bank of You.
Petersburg's rich cultural and architectural past is the foundation of the city's history, but also it's the future. We kick it over to Craig for an insider look at one resident's efforts to enrich the community.
Welcome to this week's edition of LNN Insider. We are here today with Linda Pittman, and we're going to talk about Petersburg and some revitalization and some exciting things that are going on in the community, and how Linda and Dale are getting some things done right here in the Concade City. Linda, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for coming. Strawberry Hill.
Okay, and as she just mentioned, we are at Strawberry Hill Mansion. Linda, you are the co-owner of Strawberry Hill Properties.
Correct.
So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about Strawberry Hill. People don't know a lot about its history, but there was the fact that it almost wasn't here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, I guess, about its origin and then how you came to be in ownership of it.
So it's a tobacco merchant's house built in 1792. But another tobacco merchant in 1815 bought it and added to it. So a big part of the mansion quality, the size of it, is a result of putting second floors on the wings and then kicking out the back wall.
When was that done? When did they put those in?
1815.
Okay.
And then Petersburg had that big fire in 1815.
Yeah, it was a little thing that went on and
Yeah.
kind of burned a couple things here and there.
A lot of things. So there aren't a lot of wood structures left. So the fact that we're here as a wood structure because we're further away from downtown is kind of interesting architecturally as well. You know.
Well, there's a lot of focus, Linda, on the Civil War era, but our colonial history,
Yes.
we have lost so much. That fire was the main cause of that. We lost so much of that history, people almost forget that's a rich part of who we are and where we've come from.
And the War of 1812, right?
Yeah.
Petersburg was big in that.
Yeah, so Strawberry Hill Properties has a purpose behind it.
It does.
You know, first thing people would ask, you're in Petersburg, massive, massive house. Are you crazy? I mean, why do you buy something like this? And what's the end goal?
Well, it's very beautiful. I hope some of your viewers can see that fact from the little bit we're seeing right now. But it's been restored or in the process of being restored for 30 years. And Petersburg's families have had grandparents and great-grandparents living here for just about ever. So a lot of people cared about the house and liked it, and a lot of energy on the part of the Historic Petersburg Foundation to save it. So taking care of that, continuing that legacy of a Petersburg place that was good for Petersburg and that would help keep its history alive, but also help the future.
Well, I think some of the things that get caught in Petersburg is there's some properties you don't iconically think of when you think Petersburg, although this should be one of them. You think Center Hill Mansion, it's got a lot of exposure, Battersea,
Yeah.
And even Old Town in some of the areas with the structure there.
Old Town.
Strawberry Hill's a little more tucked away,
Yeah.
but still so centralized, you'd think it'd be a lot more noticeable than it is. So do you think that's just because of location, or do you think it's these other iconic properties have gotten so much attention?
No, I think it's mostly location. I mean, Hinton Street, at this point in history, has a pretty negative reputation, right? It's a lot of the crime problems in Petersburg are down this corridor. It didn't used to be called Hinton Street. The street in front of Strawberry Hill was called Friend Street.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that's kind of nice.
Isn't that nice?
That's inviting.
In fact, one of our
Come down to
rooms,
Friend Street.
one of our rooms is called Friend and Folly.
Is it out of?
Because that was Folly Street and this is Friend Street.
So to kind of honor its history.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
kind of cool.
absolutely. In fact, they're all named after people. This is Barksdale, which was the original owner. And upstairs is Haxel, who was the 1815 owner.
Yeah.
And then the bishop's room upstairs is because a pretty important 19th century prelate, a bishop, came here regularly.
So do you have a Craig room?
Not yet.
Thought I'd try to slide it in there. I think that starts at the
You gotta
$1
keep
million
on working, man.
the $1 million donation, or I actually have to do something important.
You have to do something important.
Yeah, I haven't got to that level yet. Okay, so you have some plans for this property going forward, and off camera before we start, we talked about a couple different things you're looking at. Give us some vision of what you want to do here.
Well, we worked assiduously to get it rezoned as
That was a tough word for a West Virginia boy.
They worked really hard.
I just had to say that so they knew I actually knew what it was. It was tough.
rezoned as a hospitality
Okay.
venue. And so there are 2 houses next door to this one, which will be included in that development as they get restored. That's a lot of...
We were actually going to jump into that, but let's tangent into it right now. You have a duplicated model of what you're doing here with other properties. And again, the mentioned properties that are right next door. They looked like even, I'd say, a couple years ago, Tam and I had moved several years back, and they looked like they were going to fall in on them.
Oh, they were.
Yeah. Now they look strong. They look solid. Now, a lot of remodeling, I get it. But that duplication process, because you're almost making a complex here to some degree.
Exactly. Exactly.
And another keynote that I like, and as we continue talking about this, as you go down Hinton Street, there has been a lot of investment in other properties as well. People are fixing their houses.
Absolutely.
It's like a contagious revitalization.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about the properties beside you. Kind of, what is this strategic plan that you're doing, and how does it duplicate to these other properties?
Well, this house has been restored to get an ambiance, at least, of 1792. The immediately adjacent property was built in 1908. It's a large duplex, and the one next to that was built in 1884. So ideally, we'd like to put the pieces back together so you get that feeling of walking into 1908 or walking into 1884 the same way you do get the feeling of walking into 18th century when you come into this house.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, Strawberry Hill itself, let's go a little bit further into, people have the opportunity to come in and enjoy this right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how they can do that.
We have an event business and a hotel business. So we rent rooms. We have a website called strawberryhillpetersburg.com, and we have 5 separate rooms, suites that can be rented by the night. As an event business, we have either rent the whole house. You want to have a wedding here? We've had several weddings this last year, and it worked really, really well. Or a party for just the evening. That's another way that we...
Well, one of the fascinating pieces here is the front lawn on this property is just immaculate. It's gorgeous. It seems to be set up for a lawn party.
For tents and bands and people sitting around eating and enjoying themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So that area is dynamite. The remodeling that's been done in here, it looks like there's a lot of attention to historical accuracy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's some history, and we talked a little bit, I'd like to go a little further. At one time, people were taking pieces of this property out and basically trying to market it and sell it off.
And I don't think that was, there was no vindictiveness or evil.
No, just a business
It was just, the factory next door, which was a fabric production plant, saw a ramshackle, dilapidated old house, and was going to tear it down and turn this into a parking lot.
Yeah. Wow, what a loss that would have been.
Yeah, but in the process of tearing it down, they were taking parts of it and selling them to other places in Virginia, like, I've always heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but the Rotunda at the University of Virginia needed floorboards, and so some of Strawberry Hill's floorboards went there.
Mm-hmm.
So a group of concerned citizens said, look, we don't want people taking antiquities from the city of Petersburg out of the city of Petersburg, so we're going to stop that.
And they were successful.
They were successful. Historic Petersburg Foundation took the fellow to court, and they stopped it. And he said, well, what am I going to do with the thing?
Yeah, that's a bunch of wood now. So, now, on an offshoot, was that the foundation origin of Historical Petersburg Foundation?
I don't know exactly. It certainly
played a part.
played a role. Yes, it definitely played a role.
Okay.
And some really, really, heavy hitters in the preservation movement were here in Petersburg at the time. Did a lot of very early work in that.
Well, I think those individual moves did tremendous work in the architectural history of
Yes.
that period. And we've
Yes.
lost a lot of things, unfortunately. But we've also saved a lot of things that many cities across the country have just lost their history.
Absolutely.
So it seemed to be very successful now. Now you have some grounds here as well. You have some future plans with it as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, future and past plans. The main reason I ended up in the house at all is because I had a dream of an urban flower farm.
Oh, okay.
This is an old railroad yard that's right behind us right now, and it was a junkyard. And the former restorer of this house saved it and let it just go back to being natural. But it seemed to me that it would be helpful for Petersburgers to have beautiful flowers available from their own spaces. And so we started working on that, but as my kid tells me, you can fail at 2 businesses or succeed at 1, Mom. So I got overextended, and we hope to get back to that.
Okay. And we had talked off camera too, something about mushrooms as well.
That was originally a dream that I had for the High Street Lofts. Before it sold, before the developers took it.
And
It's
when
a
the cannabis
basement.
laws were coming into effect, different mushrooms, right?
Yeah. I like cooking.
Well, so, yeah.
You don't need to say what you like, right?
No, I don't know anything about that. I don't even know what mushrooms are used for. So those aren't completely out of the picture, but you've kind of done some shifting when you put your focus.
Exactly.
Now, do you find it fascinating that Airbnbs have taken off like crazy? Even during COVID, almost people were escaping using Airbnbs.
Yeah.
But Petersburg has become a bit of a hotbed for that. Not as much as I thought, but as we encounter with more business people and friends of ours that have them as well, those houses that they have available are rented sometimes month-long at a time. This isn't somebody just coming in and doing contractor work. They're actually coming here, staying and enjoying the area for a while. What do you think that draw, is it Petersburg or is it that desire to get out in the country? Or why do you think it's become a hotbed for us?
That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to it. We have many beautiful houses, and people have restored them, and they have space available. A lot of the houses are large, so there's extra room. Your basement is free, or your attic is, you're not using it. And you say, well, why not try it on Airbnb? And suddenly there are people here. Our prices are obviously way lower than a lot of other.
It's a
locales.
different experience. I think a fascinating part, and I've got to believe this is a big part of it. Growing up, I always wanted to live in a mansion.
Yeah.
And you literally get to step outside of yourself because you can rent this entire property.
Yeah.
And to be able to, basically, I'm waking up in
Live
a
in a
mansion,
mansion.
I'm living in a mansion.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy the architecture, like the sitting parlor here. Be able to sit down and have a good time. You get natural light that comes in here that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space.
Yeah, and the design work, the furniture is era. It's set in the right era in the context to it. So as this goes forward, this is one of the strategic plans we've seen that seems to be more individuals or smaller businesses that have, in a way, started attacking the blight issue that we've had in Petersburg.
Yeah.
That's been a huge issue for us. There's a lot of houses we're losing. In fact, you and I have talked briefly too. One of the things we both are very sad about is, with the history we've had, Petersburg has been unable to save a single theater. And at one time, I think there were 6 or 7 active theaters in Petersburg. Was that, do you think, vision at the time, or just people with the finances to do it, or maybe the strategy or the thought process of what's going on now? Do you think it just didn't exist at that time?
I don't know. I think that, theaters are having a hard time today anyway, right? Making money.
Yeah.
The big theaters.
I'm not doing live shows anymore, so there's not the draw that used to be.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's it. But actually, now that you mention that, I think there are more live shows. A lot of
It's a new growing market.
a new growing market. So it would have been nice if we could have held on to some and had that here, like the Beacon Theater. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
which
great
is
example.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I think the management down there to bring in certain types of shows that are bringing different folks in, they still struggle with a theater production in that show being profitable. And a lot of those type of organizations, Altria, there has to be an underwriting system to be able to put those shows on, because still today, practically, they don't make money.
And Petersburg doesn't have money.
Yeah, and unless it's private folks supporting that and becoming a patron, that's a little bit of a challenge. Now, we have some with PAL. There's some discussion that PAL is thinking about putting a theater
would be
back
great down
together.
there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it gives us a personality. 100, 200 seat theater you can
That'd be
control,
great.
and I think would give the opportunity to see some more live theater come back in. So, not in our near future, but I think it's plausible that some of that could happen. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of places we could put theater seating in. Still, the Bluebird.
Yeah.
When
And it's still there.
well, when Meg Ryan came in and they did the show, they actually did that fake movie theater.
Yes.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they rebuilt
They-
the front piece of it, which architecturally was a blessing.
Yeah.
So now it's still there. Now, they
Yeah.
had to take down a lot of the signage and things they did, because I think contractually with Hollywood, there's things they can't leave. But the inside of that still is solid. Currently, it's a church. But there's opportunities there, like Destination Theater towards Hopewell.
Yeah.
Took a theater and a church and combined the two together.
Yeah.
So going forward, this seems to be a drive that's all private business or individuals
Yes.
pushing. And in this instance, in a way to pay for a lot of what you're doing, you've commercialized it to some degree, which is also a plus, because I think more people seem to experience it that way than just if you did a museum.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many museum houses, and as far as I can tell, they don't usually work very well.
Yeah, the doors always almost seem never unlocked.
Yeah, or, after it's there for 20 years, then there's not enough interest in the property and it needs more upkeep than you can
Yes.
otherwise get, and the next thing you know, it's being sold again or torn down or something, so.
Well, unless it's one of the history museums in the city, which again, we struggle with that issue here as well.
Yeah,
How do we
exactly.
fund it, how do we staff
How
it,
do
when
we-
should it be open?
Exactly.
A lot of that ties into, I think, our overall tourism strategy. I'm not sure we have an overall tourism strategy in Petersburg, but it seems that tourism is really driven more by our retail and our commerce as well, places like this.
Yeah,
This is available right now,
it is.
okay, and there are continual improvements that you're going to do on this. Now, obviously, since the age of the property, there's always going to be continual issues you're going to do with it. The two properties next door, what's the window you see with that?
This one's got to be able to withstand all that it needs to be able to withstand. We still have to put a roof on.
Right.
Okay, the shingles on the roof are wooden and they're not thick enough, and it's an issue. So we got to take one at a time. Again, I'm being told that I can't do that much that fast. Slow down and make it right.
Theory-wise, and we talked about it a little bit, so I don't want to focus about the details, but the concept.
Yes.
You have spent several years from a political side, from organization sides, nonprofits, virtually kind of trying to do the same thing.
Help Petersburg.
Yeah.
The whole goal, the whole reason is Petersburg.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, as you know. I mean, there are so many strikes against us in so many ways. We have this incredibly old infrastructure that cities that have 20 times our money would have a hard time trying to figure out how to deal with. The expertise that we need to handle sewer pipes that are made of, who knows what materials, or housing.
Anything from wood to it could be clay.
Yeah. The topography is increasingly difficult just because we have so much rainfall now. So there's a creek right behind the house that same creek is the one that pulled out the entire tunnel near the building right downtown.
Right.
It's still a huge gaping open hole.
Yeah, we're talking about on Bank Street where that collapsed.
Correct.
I think it's a Lieutenant Run, I want to say.
Yeah, that's what we have right behind us. The same Lieutenant's Run, which 100 yards in that direction has another bridge that is now roped off. You can't drive there, and no one knows when it's going to be restored again.
Yeah, and I think that, and not to get too deep in that, that's part of the transparency I think we need with the strategic plan on how are we going to do that in a interweaving politics, money. There's a tremendous amount of COVID money that went all over the place. And
Yeah, I remember.
sometimes it's just, what is our strategic plan? And what's our plan to not just solidify a city, but also quality of life? And I think that's where some of these other Danvilles and some of these communities that seem to be creating this personality are really thriving in that area. Personally, I'd love to see more focus on the iconic Old Town as a drawing card, because I think as we draw people in, and like you and I have talked about, getting new blood into Petersburg is not a bad thing.
No, it's
getting
great.
folks to invest and bring in.
Great, it's absolutely what
Yeah.
we need. We have to have new people
Yeah.
come in and have dreams, and it's their work. It's people who want to do this labor, which can often be really, really hard. As you know, restoration and painting and pounding, and it's exhausting.
Painting and pounding, we got so intertwined, Tam and I did, in remodeling our house. We have a house from 1836 we live in town. A lot of folks already know that. We were so excited, and we've been remodeling for years. We had a motorcycle accident that put us back, and then when we got back on track, one night I was upstairs and we were remodeling the bathroom on the 3rd floor. And we're in townhouses, basically, old Federal row houses, and they're all brick. And I'm drilling 2x4s into the brick wall, the firewall, basically, between the two. And I'm putting up a false wall to put the plumbing and the piping behind. And I walk into the bedroom and I see a text from the neighbor, and I'm like, okay. I look down, it's 12:30 at night. I didn't realize after midnight, because we were so excited and just wasn't paying attention to time. And unfortunately, it wasn't until 1 a.m. in the morning that I went over and looked at the phone.
Yeah.
But great neighbors. I mean, they were laughing with us the next day, but they're like, maybe you could stop remodeling around 9 if you don't mind, because the room on the other side of the firewall was her bedroom. So, sorry, again, you know who you are. Sorry. So
It's the way it works sometimes.
yeah, sometimes it works.
Yeah.
But that, like you're talking about, it takes that passion to get it there. And I think when we get excited about those things, that's the heart and soul of the community. And one of the reasons we want to sit down and talk to you is, I think, what you and Dale are doing, and a driving force that's kind of under the public perception. Sometimes they don't see the people that are involved, they just see changes. We remember Strawberry Hill not too long ago. Even the paint was peeling on the outside of it when Tam and I first came to town. And it looked like it had the possibility of becoming blighted and not being here.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for a while. I didn't realize you all had purchased the property.
Huh.
But we saw changes, we just didn't know who it was.
Yeah. Well, that's nice to hear.
Well, and I think to some degree, you do a lot of work under the radar, because you don't impress me, and I've never seen it as a self-promoting woman. You do a lot of work, but I don't.
You make me uncomfortable. Let's talk
Yeah,
about something else.
let's talk about you. Okay. But we have a lot of those folks actually in town that people don't know.
We do.
A tremendous
we
amount.
do.
So
Old houses need lots of work.
they need somebody to fall in love with them.
Yeah,
Because it does take
energy.
Yeah, there is, you may have a business model with a lot of these, and even the business concept you have with here. But without the love and the passion behind it, that business model isn't going to fly.
Yeah. That's
And
for
I
sure.
think that attention to detail you see in a lot of these areas. So, do you think this is our best strategy for the blighted properties that we deal with?
I don't know what I think is the best strategy for blighted properties. What I do think is that it's something that Petersburg needs to really take seriously and get on top of. Because the
Have a
properties,
strategy.
oh, absolutely. The properties that we have are some incredibly beautiful places. But they're going down, and once they start going down, there's not a lot of saving them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of dealing, once it's bad enough, it's really, really expensive to bring it back from the grave. And I understand that that's why the city has taken down a lot of the blighted properties, but I also think that if we had somebody who could market them, in a way that would allow new people to come and try their hand at it.
Right.
And sort of connect with and I don't know if this is possible, but I have seen it happen in other cities. We may not just be big enough to take advantage of it, but could connect the people with the money and the tools to save some of these houses. Now, again, Petersburg is strapped for labor. We need more people to do more jobs than we have.
Right.
But in the best of all possible worlds, somebody who would be tasked with trying to get the people together with the money which is out there, together with our beautiful houses, would bring exactly what we need here, which is more money, more people, and more beautiful spaces.
Yeah, and I think you've got plenty of entrepreneurs that are out there. We have,
I do think, though, that the houses in Petersburg are traditionally larger than a lot of people in the rest of the country
huge.
are used to dealing with.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people who come thinking they're going to restore it, and they get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The size of the spaces in so many of our houses, the high ceilings, the decorative elements, the volume is just more than a lot of people can take on.
Yeah, I think what you get from your money is remarkable, the value that you get. But again, when Tam and I came in, we took on a project, we were downsizing. When we downsized, we ended up picking up another 500 square feet and a carriage house. And it took...
And 2 houses equivalent worth of work.
Yes, yeah, interestingly enough. But when we first stepped in, we looked at the project, said, bones are solid, okay, this is going to be nice.
Yeah.
You're dealing with plaster walls, you're dealing with metal roofs. And before we knew it, we're 6 digits into remodeling and maintaining. And it was just consuming, number one. It was a 3-year remodeling project on our own home. To do that in a size, this is double or triple, that's how, what was square footage would you say this is?
I don't know.
Okay. Mansion mode, which is, you're over 5, maybe 6,000.
Yeah.
But they also forget the size of their grounds out here. There are trees that need taken care of. There's a fence out
Old
front.
trees, big trees, pecan trees that regularly drop branches.
Yeah.
They're
And,
quite brittle, so there's constant upkeep.
and then just beautiful pieces to it that make it what it is.
Yeah.
But to keep that historically and even to keep it economically is got its own challenge. All
Yeah.
right, so Strawberry Hill,
Yeah.
you've got 2 projects next door.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot going on, a lot on your plate. What else are you doing while you're doing all this in the mix? Because I know you still stay pretty active. Has this consumed you as a project right now, or are there other things that you're doing that kind of enhance the city of the projects you're in?
Well, I teach at Richard Blank College, so I'm a geography professor. So I
You
think
certainly picked out some great geography.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I think it's some of the best. And living it also helps me to understand the issues better and therefore to communicate the issues better to my students and fellow faculty members at Richard Blank. Yeah.
Now, at some time, this project's going to be done, or at least self-sustaining.
Yes,
I don't think it'll ever be done.
that is the goal.
What's-
Self-sustaining.
What's the vision? What's next for Linda?
The next 2 houses, you mean, when they're done?
Yeah.
Then maybe I'll get to do my flower farm. Right?
I think that would be relaxing. I think Tam and I could hang out in the flower farm.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not-
Picnics out there. I'm planning on picnics.
we're a couple blocks
Yes.
away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So future going forward, there's a lot of bad press on Petersburg. I hate that because I think we have a beautiful city.
We have a wonderful city.
And we purposely decided to leave Chesterfield and move here. Tam and I's a choice just because, well, it's just got so much to it.
Yeah.
Now, do we have problems? Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a lot of challenges. But going forward, how do you see Petersburg in its future?
Well, what I hope, I don't know see, but what I hope is that I don't have guests who drive up to this house and call me and say, oh, we have to cancel our reservation, this neighborhood is bad. That's what I hope. I hope we have guests who keep coming back and fall in love with Petersburg. I hope we have a street that has as its reputation a place of inspiration and memories.
Haven't you seen though, an example being, and I could see pulling up to Strawberry Hill even a couple years ago, and especially with the houses next door and going, I'm not staying.
No, they did last weekend.
Yeah. Did that happen last weekend?
Yeah.
That totally surprises me, because as you look at the houses next door, there's obvious construction and remodeling going there. And,
No, it's the whole city.
yeah.
It's the whole city.
Yeah, I guess the gateway's coming in.
People get off, if they book us online and they've never been to Petersburg before, we have had that happen.
But we're also seeing a tremendous, for you and I being in the community for a while, Hinton Street has been massive leaps forward. And the quality of the house.
We love it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the place is fantastic. But for people who are coming from other areas and other parts of the country, it's not.
If you're coming out of Detroit or New York,
Then you're okay with it.
You're gonna love it.
Then you're okay with
You're gonna love
it. In
it.
fact, the guests this weekend were from New York, and they loved the, as they said, gritty quality.
Well, and I think to some degree, if you don't have a reality of what
Cities
urban
are.
life and city life is, we've been in a lot of cities across the nation. I've went to Memphis, and you can go to Beale Street, but if you go 3 blocks away from it, your life's in danger. Yet, they do tons of business. We're not Memphis. We're not anywhere near that. While we have some crime issues, and we've got neighborhoods and pockets that are problems, nowhere near that. In fact, I feel safer in Petersburg than I do Richmond.
Well, I do too, of course. I live here and I have property here, but the guests who come, who
Perception's
don't know
reality.
that,
Yeah.
they leave.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but I think we probably have the same vision. As you're growing forward, you want to see that the remarkable improvements on High Street have been phenomenal. The upper end of High Street, which used to be terrible past the intersection,
Yeah.
you see massive remodeling going up there as well. And I think that's starting to turn that tide. But it's as much a PR issue, I guess, as it is anything else.
Yeah, another guest canceled because she said, I just read the crime statistics and I'm not going to stay there. My car might get broken into. There have been 2 car break-ins in the first week of August. And
Yeah, I mean, if
So,
you look at the raw stats, I get that.
Yeah.
Tam and I take walks not only in Strawberry Hill neighborhood, High Street, up on Width in Washington, and honestly, we're at 10, 11 o'clock at night. Now, there's some neighborhoods we only go so far, and it's just knowing your city. But feeling safe in the downtown and the Old Town area, and probably a 5-block past there. I think Westover neighborhoods are kind of the same way. There's that pocket of, everything's good here. But there are, neighborhoods that are just issues. I mean, but you find that, Chicago.
no, I agree 100%, okay?
But a perception.
We are a city. And if sometimes you see the pictures of this house online and you think it's, in the middle of the rural area
Yeah.
with miles of green space around it.
And
that's not the
vineyards
case.
on every side.
That's not the case. And vineyards on every side, exactly. We're not Charlottesville.
No.
That's right.
But we may have mushrooms. on
Despite our.
Yeah. But
vineyards
anyway.
here.
But, I think that's the perception. And we see another draw where I think professionals and young professionals are moving back into the urban environment.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that trend. Now,
Yes.
hopefully if they aren't online shopping, that occasionally they can get out and see that they have a beautiful city.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And new restaurants and, I hear there's gonna be a wine bar and all sorts of good stuff.
yeah, and every night at 7 o'clock, there's a wine bar at our house. It's worked out very well.
Good to know, Greg, good to know.
Good. You may, in remodeling your own place, you may need that wine bar. Just go, Craig, I'm done, I'm heading that way.
Well, I'm not an alcoholic at this point in time. It's gonna happen.
No, but owning property can make you an alcoholic.
It sure can.
So, parting shots, anything you want to say as Wiz?
Come to Petersburg. Please come to Petersburg. We love having guests and we are doing everything we can to make your stay really wonderful.
And bottom line of that is, when you come here, you'll love it.
Yeah, you really will.
Linda, again, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you taking out the time and the schedule. I know how crazy that is. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to airing this discussion. So again, thank you for what you guys are doing inside the city, and kudos, keep working.
Ditto.
That's it for LNN Insider. We will catch you next week.
Breeze In and get the best lunch in town. Breeze In is a family-owned business that specializes in top-notch service and fried chicken. Come enjoy Breeze In's original finest fried chicken. Like a little spice? Ask for our Virginia Heat Chicken. We have everything from barbecue to Philly cheesesteaks on our made-to-order menu. Thirsty? Walk into our beer cave and enjoy the coldest beer in town, including a wide variety of local craft beers and wines. Enjoy a selection of local Virginia products. Come experience what puts the breeze in Breeze In.
Yes, you can still get haircuts, colors, highlights, waxing services, everything that's going to make you look great right here at the Apothic Company.
So here at Titan Auto and Tire, we're a full care automotive repair center, full maintenance items anywhere from an oil change, state inspection, and also full engine replacement. Titan Auto is different because of our customer service mainly. I mean, we have some of the best trained and qualified techs in the area. Our three main focuses are customer safety, customer service, and community. Knowing that you're going to put them first and it's not about the dollar.
And that is it for today's show. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors for making this happen, especially Dunlop House for their continued signature sponsorship. For now, enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time on LNN Insider.